Welcome to Lesson 6, Organizational Flexibility. Great job for making it this far. If this is your first video, there's 5 you gotta catch up on, but don't worry, we'll get you there. This lesson is about how the Incident Command System, or ICS, scales, both up and down, depending on the size, complexity, and time frame of the incident. As a new responder, this helps you understand why sometimes you report to a single medic in charge and other time there's a whole team of chiefs and sections involved. By the end of this lesson, you'll be able to explain how the ICS structure expands and contracts. Hopefully understand what makes an incident more complex and recognize the 5 incident types and what they mean to you. This lesson helps you think like a strategist, even if you're still entry level. And I really hope that this is one of the lectures that you revisit after you've been in the field for a couple years to see how your view and knowledge of these situations has changed, how much better informed it is once you've actually been on a few of these incidents. ICS is built on 2 things: standardization and flexibility. The first one should be obvious at this point. The second one is just as important. Standardization, clear roles, titles, and communication. We've spent the first 5 videos in this series really hammering that down. And now it's time to talk about flexibility. The structure can expand or shrink as needed, and that's actually a critical function of the ICS system and the way it was designed. Just because the system is flexible doesn't mean it's loose or casual or not sophisticated. You still use common terminology and you still have a really strong structure. So let's get into it. Modular organization is first. ICS is modular, meaning it's built in blocks that can be added or removed as needed. For example, a 2-person brush fire might only need an IC, just one. But a major train derailment might activate all 5 sections and dozens of units at the same time. The structure is always based on a few things, but most importantly, size of the incident, hazards involved, and the objectives of the response. So, here's a common myth. Every incident needs every role of ICS. Previous to me saying that, did you think, all incidents should have all positions? It's okay if you did, but in reality, we only want to activate the functions you actually need because that's most efficient. If you're running a 2-hour traffic control post, you don't need a full finance section of people who are gathering resources. Kind of makes sense, right? So here's how expansion works. We'll start with just an IC, just an incident commander. And as things expand, we'll add a safety officer or operations section chief, if needed. If it grows more, we'll activate more general staff, or more branches. And the key point here is that every active element must have a leader involved. And don't forget, if the incident shrinks, you can demobilize these roles as well. Not every incident will require every section. Sometimes only one unit, like situation unit in planning, is activated. And if so, and there's no planning section chief, otherwise, that unit reports directly to the IC, and it actually works very well. This flexibility makes ICS lightweight when it needs to be, but powerful when it has to be. It's tempting to combine roles to save people. Sure, we all feel that way. But in ICS, you don't combine titles. You assign multiple roles to one qualified person using the standard names. For example, if I assign Erica to be the safety officer and the liaison officer, she might have both roles, but I'll never call her the safety liaison. That's confusing, and people might not understand that she does both. Should you combine ICS positions and titles in order to save on staffing or achieve a higher level of efficiency? No, because responders from other agencies may not recognize these made-up positions. This causes confusion during coordination and mutual aid, particularly. Just use the real ICS titles, even if one person wears multiple hats. No problem. Again, it's tempting to combine ICS positions to gain staffing efficiency, but don't do it. Organizational flexibility doesn't just apply to people. It also applies to resources. So now a little bit on resource management. Good ICS keeps track of what resources are needed, what has arrived, what is being used, and when it's time to send stuff home. This helps avoid both chaos and waste. Incidents often grow faster than resources can arrive, and that's okay. We have a system in place to hopefully catch up to these things. Eventually, you'll hit a point where the resources and control stabilize. Then the incident shrinks and the excess resources can go home. This cycle is normal, and ICS is built to handle it. So here's what usually happens during an incident. First, operations is slammed in the beginning. Planning gets really busy just after that. Logistics ramps up and winds down in that period, and towards the end, the unfortunate bulk of the work lies on the finance committee. They're super busy at the end, closing out reports, closing out claims, getting people paid. And if you understand this common incident arc, you'll understand how to anticipate for needs at different phases of the incident. Like we said, not all incidents are created equal. Complexity depends on a lot of things like hazard, size, number of agencies, political and media attention, duration of the incident, etc., etc. As a responder, the more complex an incident, the more structure and communication you should expect. So here are a few red flags that suggest an incident is getting complex. First, threats to public safety. That can complicate things very quickly. Involvement of hazardous materials as they affect both your patients and your responders. Weather impacts, cross-jurisdictional lines, and need for public information. If multiple of these things are happening, expect more ICS roles to activate. So we'll pick a scenario like flood, hostage situation, or chemical spill, and ask yourself, what are the top 3 complexity factors? Would you need a unified command? What extra resources would you request? Pause here if needed, and we'll continue when you're ready. Feel free to share your scenario and top factors in the comments, and we'll discuss there. As the incident becomes more complex, you need more personnel. That's okay. You need more coordination. That's okay too. Your ICS structure must grow, and it's okay to ask for help. You don't want a small team trying to manage a massive problem. They don't give out awards for that. Resource typing refers to labeling equipment and team based on a few things: kind, type, category, and capability. So first, kind. What is it? Ambulance, team, equipment, etc. How capable is it? In the fire service, we have engines and ambulances and other apparatus that are type 1, type 2, type 3, and that usually refers to how capable it is, right? Understanding that is fairly standardized in certain functions and will help us inform what we have at our fingertips. Who's showing up, in what type, and who's already maybe staged if we know that we need a type 3 or type 1 of this, that, or the other. And category and capability refer to what function it supports. This helps you order exactly what you need, and it helps manage what you have available. So now for a quick discussion question. Which is a kind and which is a type? Ordering a bus with seating for more than 40 adults is an example of what? And ordering a canine team is an example of what? I think you'll find the answer that the bus or dog team is a good example of kind. The size or skill level, 40 adults or canine team that can detect explosives, would be the type. If you request an ambulance but don't specify type, you might just get something that's too small or under-equipped or the wrong level of service. So to be clear, we need 2 type 1 ALS ambulances with crew. This saves time, confusion, is nice and clear, and it saves lives. Types run from 1 to 4 usually, type 1 being full ALS, type 4 being basic first aid station, and stuff like that. That's what it is for us in the fire service and EMS, usually, but it might be different where you are. You match resource types to an incident's need, but most usually type 1 is the highest level. Resource typing is part of the NIMS Resource Management Guide, something we've referred to before. All levels, local to federal, they use it to locate resources, request mutual aid, plan for large-scale emergencies. Great. If your agency uses the FEMA RTLT, which is Resource Typing Library Tool, then you can search for those specific definitions online here. So now time to define a few terms. We've had a lot of terms in this series so far. You've done a great job. We're going to add a couple more. Task force is first. Task force is mixed resources with a leader. Combination of mixed resources with common communications operating under direct supervision of a task force leader. A strike team is a set number of resources of the same kind and type with common communications operating under direct supervision of a strike team leader. A strike team may also be referred to as a resource team by law enforcement. So strike team, resource team, kind of the same thing. Single resource is an individual or a piece of equipment and its personal complement, or crew or team of individuals with identified work supervisor that can be used at an incident. Usually one item, one team with a supervisor. So 5 ambulances plus a leader would be a strike team, but 1 EMT crew, for example, would be a single resource. Hopefully that makes a little bit of sense. So now on to another discussion question. Which of these is a strike team or resource, and which of them is a task force, and which of them is a single resource? 5 type 1 ambulances and crew complements with a leader, strike team. 1 type 1 ambulance and crew complement, single resource. 1 type 3 helicopter, 1 urban search and rescue team, and 1 emergency medical technician with a leader, task force. Looking at it this way, really helpful for me, hopefully really helpful for you. Incidents are also typed from type 5 to type 1, with type 5 being the smallest and type 1 being the most complex. This helps leaders know how much structure to activate and what kind of team to send and how long it may last, as well as letting other people know who are joining the project and joining the incident just how much is likely to go on. The incident type corresponds to both the number of resources required and the anticipated incident duration. The incident types move from 5 being the least to 1 being the most complex, like we mentioned. As the number of resources required gets larger and the duration of the incident gets longer, the complexity increases. The vast majority of incidents are in the type 3 to 5 range, and the clocks here don't necessarily depict length of incident time, but they're kind of relative, so you understand one being more than the other. So let's take a type 5 incident. This would be, your basic EMS or fire call with 1 or 2 resources, no ICS staff beyond maybe your captain who's serving as the IC, and it's usually contained within a few hours. Car accident, dumpster fire, or a person who faints at a, festival or something like that. Type 5. Type 4 incident might require a few extra units, right? It might last for 1 operational period, might require the activation of a safety officer or operations chief. And there usually would not be an incident action plan or IAP unless there's some sort of hazardous materials involved, some sort of prolonged cleanup that may be needed after the fact. And so an example for these, type 4 incidents would be like a house fire with minor exposure or a multi-vehicle crash with some injuries. So now on to type 3 incidents. Now we're talking more about an extended response. This is something that could definitely last multiple shifts, and more ICS roles will need to be filled. An IAP is almost always present and developed in type 3 incidents and higher, and there definitely might involve some mutual aid. What would be an example of some type 3 incidents? Potentially the aftermath of a tornado or a wildfire that is coming to that urban interface and starting to, threaten some homes like those we had, in Los Angeles at the beginning of 2025 here. Not always type 3 incidents, could be higher, but think in that category. Type 2 incident is something that needs regional or national support. Up to 500 responders. More or all ICS roles will be filled. Multiple operation periods will occur during the management of this incident, and a written IAP is required. Something like a major flood or chemical spill affecting the city certainly qualifies as a type 2 incident. And now on to a type 1 incident. This is the biggest of the big. Over 1,000 personnel. Full ICS structure with all branches, usually, and it may require a disaster declaration. Often involves federal agencies on top of all the mutual aid and everyone else assisting. And so these types of things we typically see with hurricane response, large-scale terrorism incidents, and stuff like that. National resources are being required to safely and effectively manage the operations all the positions are activated, all of that good stuff. From there, we might have incident management teams, or IMTs. They're rostered groups of ICS qualified personnel consisting of an incident commander, other incident leadership, and personnel qualified for other key ICS positions. An IMT may be used to respond to an incident, and they may include command and general staff members, and their types might correspond to the incident type, and include everything from local, village, and township level to national and state level incident management teams. Preformed teams that manage incidents, depending on the type. They've got an IC, they've got a chief, they've got specialists, and they can deploy anywhere they're needed. So now on to an activity. We'll review a few simple incident scenarios and then decide what type they fall under. Review the facts presented about the 5 incident scenarios in your student manual, determine the incident type, and then we'll discuss the answers. Or better yet, if you're watching at home, answer in the comments. What is the largest incident you've responded to? What type was it, if you remember? Or if you don't, based on what you know and what you do remember, what would you project the type class to be? So great job. You have now completed the organizational flexibility lesson, and you should now be able to explain how the modular organization expands and contracts. Okay? Identify factors to consider when analyzing the complexity of an incident and define the 5 types of incidents. In the next lesson, we'll cover transfer of command, which is pretty important as well. Incidents will change hands during their operational period. And we'll talk about why it matters and how to do it right, and how to do the briefing for the incoming incident commander or unified command team, all that good stuff. So here's your discussion question for the Commons. What's one way ICS helps manage a chaotic scene, like a mass casualty or fire at a large event? Drop your answer in the comments. I'd love to hear what you say. Your insights could very well help other responders like us to think ahead. What you shared could help somebody that, might want to avoid that same issue in the field. Thanks again for watching. Please like and subscribe if you found this video useful. It means a lot to us and doesn't cost you anything. See you in the next lesson.